But what if that isn't your experience? What if your name isn't on the list at all? Or it's at the very, very bottom next to a role that you weren't even interested in? Then what? Hello and welcome. My name is Kaylee Jo and I make content all about my experiences as a theater teacher. Today I want to talk about how to handle not being cast in the role that you were hoping for, because that can be a really difficult process to handle. And not to brag or anything, but I feel pretty qualified to talk about this topic because I've auditioned for dozens of shows where I did not get the role that I was hoping for. And on top of that, I have also directed over a dozen shows where I have had to make some pretty difficult casting decisions. To get us started, I want to begin with my favorite "I didn't get the part that I wanted" example, because it is my own.
Settle in, girls. It's story time.
It was my senior year of high school and I was a die-hard theater kid. I eat, slept, and breathed theater. I came early, I stayed late. Theater was my #1 priority and I devoted all of my time to it. My school had a really competitive program. To put that into perspective, my freshman year, the musical had over 90 cast members. I participated in every single show that I possibly could from my freshman year to my senior year, and the final show of my senior year was going to be our spring musical, The Wizard of Oz. I had just wrapped up having a leading role in the fall show, my very first lead ever, and I was feeling pretty confident about being cast in the role that I was hoping for, which was Glinda. I was tall, I was blonde, I was frequently cast in princessy type roles, and I was a mezzo-soprano, which meant that I could sing the part. And I was also a senior who had committed their entire high school career to the theater program, so I just knew that this was my time to shine. Auditions take place, I think that I do pretty well, and at the end of the school day, the last day before winter break, the cast list goes up on the bulletin board outside of the theater room. And I remember walking up to the list and expecting or hoping to see my name in those top few spots. And I don't see it. And I keep scanning and scanning and scanning. And finally, I see my name next to a flying monkey. And to make matters a little bit harder, guess who got Glinda? My very best friend. And it's not that I wasn't happy for her, but it is possible to be happy for someone and sad for yourself at the same time, and that was my situation. This was a heart-wrenching, soul-crushing defeat, and for a 17-year-old whose entire identity was wrapped up in being a theater kid, it was just a lot to handle. I cried all the way home. And then I spent the majority of my winter break in my room feeling very, very sorry for myself. And Christmas morning, I opened up a gift from my mother, which had been purchased pre-knowing what role I had received. And it was this beautiful set of vintage Wizard of Oz dolls, and I cried again. Point being, it was a very, very tough winter break as I suddenly had to wrap my head around this new version of my senior musical that I had not imagined. I know this is all very melodramatic and sad, but I promise it has a happy ending. So, needless to say, throughout the rehearsal process for The Wizard of Oz, I had a lot of downtime. So, during the rehearsals, I volunteered to do absolutely anything that I possibly could. This was actually our first show where we used projection scenery, and so I designed all of the projection scenery and even operated that computer backstage during the show. I even created the yellow brick road out of lights and gobos, which was a pretty big deal for our traditional lighting instruments. I also worked side by side with a professional theatrical flying company that we had brought in to help us fly actors for the show. And the way that that works is they show up for 2 weeks, install the equipment on the ceiling of the theater, and teach you how to use it, and then leave. So I became one of the people who oversaw the flying process during our rehearsals after the company left, and helped out during the shows whenever I could. So that was a really, really cool experience to work with the same company that actually flew Katy Perry during some of her concerts. If I had gotten the role that I wanted, I wouldn't have had all of these really amazing learning experiences that I could still move forward and put on a theatrical resume. Likewise, I wouldn't have had these experiences if I chose to sit backstage and sulk about not getting the role that I wanted. Instead, I jumped in and learned everything that I possibly could, and in the end, I think that I learned more than I would have if I had gotten the role that I was hoping for. So, from a teacher and director standpoint, this is what you need to know about the audition and casting process to help you better understand and handle not receiving the part that you wanted. The audition and casting process is not entirely within your control. I'm gonna use a sports analogy here, which is not common for this channel, so forgive me if I don't do this correctly. But let's use soccer as an example, or any sport where you score points, which I think is all of them. So let's say you kick the ball into the net, your team has scored a point. Yay you. Okay, now you're in the audition room and you hit the last note in your audition song really well. It was perfect. Okay, so you get the proverbial point, right? So what about whenever the next 5 people who come into the audition room also get that proverbial point because they also sang their songs really well? Now what? The audition panel has to sit down and compare all of the potential people for that role and decide which one fits the vision best. Something else you need to be aware of is the director's vision. This is the bigger picture for the entire show. What is the vibe that they're trying to project? What do they want this show to feel and look like? And that means that there are factors that are going to impact their casting decisions that are completely out of your control, like how you look alongside another actor, if that's a character that you would be interacting with quite a bit, or chemistry between actors. How well do people play off of each other? These things are kind of difficult to control, but can play a huge part in the casting and audition process. To better explain this point, I have an example from my most recent audition experience. So I auditioned for a community theater production. It was a kind of comedy murder mystery play. The audition went really well and I got a callback. So at the callback, I was asked to read 3 different scenes for one character. And there were 2 other women at the callbacks who were asked to read the same scenes for the same character. So it became very clear that there were 3 of us who were kind of being narrowed down for this one role. As we each read through these scenes, I realized that it really wasn't about who read the scene better, because theater is art is subjective. It was really just a matter of how we were reading it, because we each did it so differently. We would put emphasis on different words, or we would put pauses in different places. We would move differently. There was so much uniqueness within our 3 different interpretations of this scene, even though it was literally the exact same words. And so at the end of the day, I did not get that part. But I realized that's because I just wasn't what the director was looking for. I did not fit his vision in this instance. And so, yes, I was disappointed because I wouldn't have auditioned for the role if I didn't want it. But I wasn't going to beat myself up about it because I did what I could and the rest was out of my control. All right, so now let's talk about how to handle rejection in a healthy way. First of all, it is absolutely okay to be disappointed whenever you don't get the outcome that you were hoping for. Nobody is going to judge you for having worked incredibly hard on something, not getting the result that you wanted, and then being kind of upset about that. That is 100% understandable. It is okay to vent to your journal, a trusted family member, never to social media or anybody involved in the production, of course, but I think it can be really cathartic to kind of get those emotions out into the universe, and a great way to do that is, again, by talking to your parents or journaling about it. Just get those feelings out in the open and get them off your chest. It is also okay to cry. This is a very normal human emotion whenever you're going through something difficult, so by all means, cry your heart out if that's what you need to do. And then once you've done all of those things, you have vented, you've cried, then go put on your favorite musical soundtrack and remind yourself why you love this art form so much, and that there will be more shows, there will be more auditions, and there will be more opportunities for you to shine. So once you have kind of processed that initial disappointment in the casting, then I highly encourage you to sit down and analyze your audition. If this wasn't the best performance that you think that you could have put forth in an audition room, then sit down and analyze what could you have done better. Maybe you know that you're not a very strong dancer, and so that portion of your audition is always very difficult for you. So go ahead and start researching local dance classes that you can take, or look up a YouTube video on how to be a better dancer. These are all things that you can do to contribute to having a better audition in the future. On a side note, as tempting as it may be to go on social media and stalk the profile of the person who got the role that you were hoping for, this is a really dangerous comparison game that is no good for you or the other person. Just know that for whatever reason, this person was the director's top choice for that role in this show. And just try your best to be happy for them, because if the roles were reversed, you would want them to be happy for you as well. And if the situation is that you were still cast in the show, but you didn't get the role that you were hoping for, then I highly encourage you to be the best insert role here that you can be. Whatever that is, however large or however small, put 110% effort into it, because that kind of reputation is going to withstand this one show. And then the next time that that director sees you audition for a show, then they're going to remember what a great job you did in your previous role, and that's going to help you in the future. And if it's a situation where you did not receive a part at all, then go volunteer to do other things for the show. Make show posters, paint the set, do anything that you can to help out, because if you truly love theater, then you want to be involved in any way that you possibly can. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy theater and theater education related content, please like and subscribe for more, and as always, break a leg.